Taking a look at your women's finish, Jefferson, 7-10 overall, 5-9 inside the conference. Mm-hmm. That's not what you're used to with the Jewel women as far as record, but how much of it influences the new conference and NCAA Division II have to do with that?
Well, we're playing a very competitive conference, and we played very well in the conference, even though we didn't win as many games as we wanted to this year. We had only 4 seniors on the team, and only one of them started more than half the games. So we had a very young team with really a lot of freshmen and sophomores getting the majority of our minutes. And we lost a lot of starters off the team that went to the Elite Eight last year. So we knew this was going to be a great year for opportunity for the players, playing against a very competitive schedule. So even though we didn't have as many wins, we had probably some individual victories in some regards as far as players getting more playing time, players developing as players, getting a style of play that we kind of developed through the season. And so those were some good things along the way. And the top 4 teams in the conference, we were very competitive on the road against all 4 of them. So 2 of which we lost in overtime. So we had 5 teams in our conference make the national tournament, the Division II national tournament. And we were very competitive with those teams. So again, it's one of those things where in the future we're going to be a better team, and if we can be a better team, then we're going to be one of those teams looking to get a national tournament invitation.
Yeah, from a team perspective, from your view of things, how long does it take for a new group, young group, to kind of mesh? What kind of process is that for a team to come together?
You know, it has to be quickly. It's one of those things where we need it to happen. Usually with the preseason, it'll take almost a month to make sure that everything's going the way you want it to. Because in that month, besides preseason and training and trying to figure things out, you're playing competition that's going to be one really good team, one team that isn't quite as good. So if you play the really good team first, but you're not doing everything you want to do, maybe what you're working on may not look as good, so you get frustrated. You really can't change it because you're still working on it. Then if you play a really bad team first, maybe it looks too good because you think you've got it perfected when really you were just playing against a team that wasn't quite ready as you were. So usually it takes a month to figure it out. You play all different levels of competition, have different players play, and by that end of the month, you kind of figure out what you've got and how you're going to use it for the rest of the season.
You certainly have some players that you'll be counting on next year, but let's go from front to back a little bit and talk about up front Sarah Franklin, who had as a sophomore another very solid year.
Another very good year. You know, I think Sarah is definitely one of the best, if not the best, forward in the conference. She got a lot of attention, obviously, and still scored a lot of goals and had a lot of assists, and was a very productive player for us.
You were disappointed a little bit that she wasn't named to any all-conference teams, despite being one of the leading scorers in the conference?
I was very disappointed. She deserved to be on that list, without a doubt. So there were other players in our conference that also were not listed on other teams. So I think the process of that all-conference will probably slightly change in the future. But Sarah is an all-conference player, and she knows it, and everyone else knows it. So the fact that she wasn't on that list means nothing to anyone who knows what's going on. So it's kind of a glitch in the system.
Up front, we saw some different combinations through the year, but Lauren Ryan, as a freshman, came on and contributed for you. Could you talk a little bit about her? Yeah,
Lauren, she's a freshman player from St. Louis who really, she came in with a lot of experience on defense. But we had a lot of players that really had a lot of experience on defense, and she at practice was scoring some goals when we were doing some exercises and drills that were attacking drills. She had a better scoring rate than a lot of other players, so we put her up top there, and I think she scored 4 goals for us this year and had a really good season. Towards the end of the year, at times, we would use her as a defensive midfielder, and she also did well there. But she played right back, center back, holding midfielder and forward for us this year. So she played a lot of different positions.
Speaking of midfielders, Mallory Malone, Taylor Depperman, and Kate Beaver, among others, had pretty good years for you. Yeah,
they all had really good years for us. It's one of those things where even though our record wasn't as good as we've used to having in the past, all those players really had some very good games or had some times of the season where they were arguably our best player. And they're all young, and those players, actually Taylor won't be back next year. The other players you mentioned will be back next year, so it'll be something that will be even better having those players with another year of experience and who are quality players who are used to the competition we're playing against.
Again, when you look at the defensive backfield for you guys, I guess Sally Stout stands out, Renee Freeman, again, others, as you did look for some combinations this year. But defensively, did you feel good about the way things went this year?
Yeah, I mean, it was, we had one bad game where we gave up a lot of goals. It was at Northern Kentucky. It was one of those games where it just wasn't going to go our way early on. But besides that, had very good, some very good defensive games. And some of the games where we kept it low scoring, we actually were against the run of play a little bit, and those defenders, even though we lost, still gave a really good effort. So it was, I think we've got a lot of good experience coming back next year, and you know they're going to get more experience. I think defense is really one with experience, and we'll be more experienced next year.
Boy, and anchoring that defense is your sophomore goalkeeper, Kelly Sontag, who played every minute this year, at least according to the stats.
Yeah, she did.
I find that amazing. What kind of year did she have?
She had a good year as well. I mean, Kelly, she is very, very hardworking. She demands a lot of herself. So if she doesn't have a shutout every single game, she probably is disappointed. But she makes some great saves, and we can't take her for granted. She's a very good goalkeeper, works very hard. So she had a good season as well, and she looks forward to 2 more years here at William Jewell.
I ask you the same question on the men's side of things, but what's the unknown story or one of the things you think people should know about this year's team? This women's team is not afraid to play against anybody. So you could probably see how we had some really good games with some of the better half of the top half of our conference. We competed very well against. We had a couple of games in towards the end of or midway through the season that didn't make much sense. But besides that, we were extremely competitive with everyone in the conference. And the women really are not afraid to play against anyone. So I think they like proving themselves to other teams. And so it's one of those things to where they don't talk about, we're playing this team, they're great, or that team, they're great. Or we're playing this team, they're not as good in the standings. The women really go out there and try and put their style onto the other team. And usually it works out pretty well. So we had some games where we really could have won. I mean, Wisconsin Parkside went to the national tournament and were a very good team at their place. We lost in overtime, but could have won in regulation. They hit a ball at the crossbar in overtime. So, other teams probably would have gone in, and other teams in the conference would have said we would have had no chance going into that game. And the women were like, well, we'll see. We've been talking all fall about the transition to NCAA Division II and the Great Lakes Valley Conference. Yeah. It's been a transition year for you as well, coming from the assistant and co-head coach to the head coaching spot here. Talk a little bit about what that transition was like for you.
I was associate head coach the past 5 years, the transition's been good. Obviously, Coach Sissel did a good job here in my time here, and he was here before that, obviously. And Coach Howard has been a very good help as an assistant coach with the men and women. So I think Josh had a great season as well. And so the transition for me, since I've been here for so long, and since I recruited all these kids, it's just been something where I haven't thought about being a transition, to be honest, at all. So, because a lot of the same players, and we're all playing against new teams, so it's just been a lot of fun.